Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the interview portion of the Board of Supervisors meetings for Wednesday, January 19th, 2022. I believe our first applicant is Christopher Greeley. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
Going great. How about yourself?
Fantastic. I'm going to open up to questions. I will start with Suzanne Blundy. Suzanne?
Yeah, thanks, James. Hi, Chris. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I kind of assumed I was going to recognize you. Can I ask when you moved to Lower Makefield?
We've been in the area. We were in Newtown starting last November, staying with family, but we actually only moved in about 6 months ago.
Okay. The only reason I asked is, I commuted to New York City for a long time with somebody who I would describe as the managing, not attorney, but managing something of your law firm. So I was like, oh,
George Wolf.
Yep.
I know George very well.
So I was like, oh, I'm going to recognize Chris from the train, but I didn't. But that it all makes sense now. So welcome and thank you for not only moving to Lower Makefield, but also for volunteering to be a part of our community that helps move different initiatives forward. What per se makes you interested in this group to work with?
Yeah, I've sort of had a strong draw towards history, local history. I grew up in Bergen County in New Jersey. I was a history major at Franklin and Marshall, and I've picked up a love for genealogy from my dad. So I've spent a lot of time sort of deep in the New Jersey state records, trying to find a bunch of his family who had come in through Hoboken in the early 1900s. We have a number of my family members who founded towns in New Hampshire in the late 1600s, and I think that really sparked my interest for colonial American history, which was one of my focuses in college. So as I mentioned earlier, we've been in the area since November. My in-laws have lived here for a couple of years, so we've kind of been in and out before we moved back here from California. And I would spend a lot of time just kind of driving around, looking at old farmhouses and kind of looking up the history of various places I could find. So really interested to get more involved and kind of understand preservation and what's going on in the area.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions. Should I toss the ball, James? Or are you going to do that?
No, if you want to toss the ball, I'd just leave Dan for last because I think he's still wrapping that up.
I'm caught up as needed. Don't worry about it. But thank you, James.
Okay, so your choice, Suzanne. I'll let you pass.
Well, then
the time.
just go ahead, Dan, since you're ready.
Well, and actually, Mr. Greeley, I recognize the name because we had traded some emails there, for you specifically. So thank you for pursuing it. I too have family back to the New England and Atlantic Canada region dating back to about the same time as yours. So I appreciate what your interests are. Actually a great deal. I'm the liaison to both of the historic committees that we have, the HARB and the Historic Commission that you're applying to. So I work this past year and going forward for this year. So I work very closely with this group, and you for better or worse, you'd get to see me on a regular basis. So I'm just curious. Well, Suzanne asked the right question as to why you're interested. Have you watched any of the meetings? I know we've traded a few emails, but I'm curious as to what you've taken from the meetings and what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I went back, I think, into September. I think the only one I haven't seen is the last meeting. I just haven't caught up with it yet. I think what came out from all the meetings was how much they're looking for help, which is one of the things that really kind of fueled me moving forward. But I think there are a lot of initiatives they're trying to move forward with, including looking for grant money and finding ways to pursue preservation sort of within the edicts they've been given by the Board of Supervisors and understanding their budget constraints. And I think I'd be kind of well situated to help move a lot of that forward.
It sounds like you have a penchant for special projects. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Yeah.
No, that fits.
Yeah. Even looking at your resume, it's not. You jumped a little bit in really interesting ways in your career. And that's honestly, when we talk about the Historic Commission versus the HARB, one of the things that the Historic Commission really wants to do this year is, because they need help, they're low on numbers. We have multiple openings. They really are they have a new chair this year as of the last meeting. They're really focused on doing special projects and initiatives versus discussing history all the time kind of thing. So
Yep.
I think that background will be really interesting. And at the same time, this particular committee, you get to learn a lot about your town history just by taking part. So I welcome you to the team. If you have any questions I always like to turn it around to when I'm a liaison. If you have any questions for me about this particular group, I'm happy to try and answer them for you. But
No,
it is a good group.
I think the only question I would have is, as you look back over the last, year or so, understanding the difficulties that COVID has brought with trying to do anything, is there anything that you wish the committee would have accomplished or have been further along with than they are currently?
Yeah, they're actually pretty good with, a lot of history stuff, history-related stuff, cultural resources related items is a lot of paperwork and research. Yeah. So that COVID, their main issue is that they don't have a full group yet. They've lost some members over the years and they haven't sort of replenished. So we have some really driven folks with some great knowledge and a bit of a diverse background. We just don't have numbers. So I think someone with energy and interest could come in and really help. They have some ideas for projects, for grants and special projects and different outreach items. For Historic Commission, right, is really about outreach and promoting local history. So I think those items can build upon that and maybe take ownership or leadership on a couple of special projects would be really helpful to that group.
Awesome.
Thanks,
thank you.
Thank you.
Fred, do you have any questions? If you could keep it to a minute, please.
I think it'll be a welcome addition, Chris. The Historic Commission is a good bunch of people, and I think your insight would be a welcome addition.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. John?
Yeah, actually, it's funny, in reviewing your resume, I have two questions. One is, how did you make a transition from being a lawyer to being in the gaming industry? And then two, what are your thoughts on the Activision Blizzard Microsoft deal? I know they're not germane to your appointment, but I'm more curious in learning.
Yeah, I had been looking to make a transition out of law for a while to the business side, although George Wolf ran a great law firm. I've been playing video games since I was, 5 or 6. So it was, and I played a lot of video games from the company I currently work for, Riot Games. So they were looking for a lawyer to come on board and lead some business efforts for them. So just a really good match at the time. Leaving the East Coast wasn't easy. We owned a house in Hoboken. My wife worked in Manhattan. I worked in Manhattan. It was hard for us to give that up and move away. But it's been a great experience. I'm working remote now, and we got to come back and be near family again in some place we're really excited to raise our 2 girls. And then the Activision Microsoft deal. Really interested to see if it passes antitrust regulations and review. I think it's Activision is a pretty big competitor for us in esports, but there's a lot of good folks over there who I think are suffering with all of the bad press Activision has had. So I hope it's a boost for them. And ultimately, I'm a guy who likes good video games. So if it means they can turn out some good quality stuff over the next couple of years, I think it can be a win for the entertainment industry overall.
That's all I had. Although I'd love to talk with you more sometime about that because I'm curious about the space.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Chris.
At some point, Chris, I'm going to ask you for headset and chair recommendations because I'm noticing that you have a good set there.
Yeah, I got you. Not a problem.
Chris,
Awesome.
Thanks again so much for throwing your name in the hat. We all really appreciate it, and we look forward to hearing from us. I would say within the next day or so.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Yep. Take care. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Next up is Victor Fiore. He is also applying for the Historic Commission. If you could bring Victor in, please.
Bringing Victor in now.
Hello.
Hey, Victor, can you hear us?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. I am going to turn the questions over to, we'll start with Fred this time. Fred?
Oh, thank you, James.
Welcome.
Hi, Victor. I guess the big question is, other than, thank you for applying for this position. What do you bring to the table as far as history is concerned?
So my background is a little bit more different than one would expect for applying for a historical commission, obviously. Most of my knowledge pertains to more industrial side of history. I am what one would call an apprentice blacksmith. I've been researching and learning a lot about the different historical recreations of work in regards to architecture and stuff like that.
Anything else, Fred? Yeah, I think you're on mute.
Oh, I'm good.
That was it? Okay. All right, we'll pass it over to John. John?
So tell me a little bit more about blacksmithing. So your interest is in industrial history, history of how things are built and stuff like that. So do you actually, you do blacksmithing yourself in terms of, okay. Do you have a whole
Yes.
setup then?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. And then aside from what other history are you interested in that's related to the township?
Specifically colonial history. I currently live on what used to be the McCormick Duck Farm. I've been researching a lot about the history regarding that and the past blacksmiths of the area, including the one that was in Edgewood, and then the ones that were actually in the borough of Yardley.
Awesome. Okay. I know we've got tight time, so I'll yield to, I guess, who's left?
Your pick, Dan or Suzanne?
Dan?
Hey, hi, Victor. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm hanging in there. So, I noticed. I think I recognize your address. I think we're not almost neighbors, but not quite. So I think I know. There's a fairly large, or I shouldn't say large, but a fairly large Fiore family, I guess, in that general area, right? Couple
Yes.
generations. Okay, so
Yes.
I'm familiar, sort of, but I thought I recognized your name, and I was like, he's younger than I thought. Just
Yeah. Very.
yeah. So I'm the liaison to the Historic Commission this year and last year. So, as I was telling the last person, it's a small group right now that's really driven by history. There are professionals, professional historians and cultural resources experts on the committee. It's a really interesting group that volunteers their time. So I'm curious what special project, because they're really into special projects right now. What special project do you think would be an interesting one based on what you've done for your own studies of local history that you might want to explore further with the group?
I mean, it's really just about like historical recreations, keeping things historically accurate, and a lot of like the restorations of properties, like old houses and everything, stuff like that.
Okay, and then I'll ask in terms of availability. I'm looking at your resume. Are you you're an undergrad right now?
Yes.
You are you local or are you
Yes.
are you away? Okay.
I'm local. Yes.
Okay. And you'll have availability to attend the meetings and all that?
I should be able to. Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure because they can. It's student first. At least that's what I would preach. Okay.
Actually,
all right. I don't really have. Have you watched
Nice.
any of the meetings? I'm sorry, Victor.
I was just saying. I actually went to high school with James Nyes, who's currently the treasurer.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, that's interesting. Good. And do you have any questions for me as liaison about the committee before I pass it over to Suzanne?
Not this time.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I will hand you over to very capable hands over there.
Who has really nothing to say. I noticed the connection from Holy Ghost and thought we're going to have the youngest age average on the Historic Commission of any of our boards, which is a wonderful thing. I welcome the energy that you'll bring to this. I do think your resume is going to be an interesting read between the blacksmithing and the nuclear engineering. A little bit in the past, a little bit in the future, but welcome.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else to add. I really appreciate you putting your application in, David. I'm sorry, Victor. I'm looking at your resume and I see David on there. But yeah, we really appreciate it, and you'll hear from us in the next day or so.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Bye. Bye.
And I believe we have about 4 minutes left before the last one, unless they're already in.
Hey, James, do you know how many, if we have a little bit of a buffer, do you know how many spots we have open? Do you have that handy? I
Yeah, let
didn't
me
see.
look.
Two, you mean for historic, we have two.
Okay,
according to-
just, okay, that's what I thought. Thank you, Suzanne. Because there's another person who I believe just put in their resume that the Historic Commission is very keen on. I forget his last name. I think his first name's Tom. I know his resume is either in or should be in. I don't know if Kurt has an update on that one, but that's one that they've all been asking to be appointed.
Okay,
We have George and can bring him in now.
sure. Good evening, Mr. Hines.
Good evening.
Nice to see you, and I appreciate your application here, and I'm going to turn it over to Supervisor Lewis for some questions first.
Okay, great.
Awesome. What's motivating you to be part of Farmland Preservation Corporation?
Well, I've lived here in Lower Makefield for 24 years, and I happen to live surrounded by the farmland preservation properties over here off of Dolington Road and Woodside.
Okay.
So I've taken advantage of being able to walk around the bike paths and see everything. And I really think it's a great cause that we have not only in Lower Makefield, but Bucks County, to preserve the farmland we have so that things don't get overdeveloped, and we allow things to really kind of allow us all to enjoy what we have around here. So I think in talking to a couple of the members on the committee, it's really something that would be very interesting to me, something that I think I can contribute to on a volunteer basis.
Awesome. Do you have any farming experience, family farm experience at all?
Not really.
Okay.
I mean, my grandfather years ago, when I was a kid growing up down in South Jersey, had his own parcel of land in the back that he farmed and did stuff. I try to do my container farming here on my property on my back deck.
Well, I'll give
So
you partial credit for that. Yeah.
every year I go out and plant my tomatoes or different little things that I can harvest throughout the summertime. And obviously where I live, I'm right around the corner from Memorial Park. So I see all the little plots that the people have over there and always enjoy talking to some of the people if I'm out for a walk, see what they do. And I have some friends who have a plot over there as well.
Awesome. One last question. Financial management experience at all? The reason I ask that is farmland preservation has a large sum of, or 7 figures of cash that they have to manage to keep their operations running. So that's a nice thing to have if you've got experience and investment experience at all.
I wouldn't say I have investment experience, but over the years I had my job at Johnson & Johnson. I was responsible for some pretty large budgets over the years and having to deal with capital investments there and understand the business planning process pretty well. And I do have an MBA. So
Okay, awesome.
and in order to get that MBA, you do have to take accounting courses and managerial accounting. So that in addition to my engineering background, I guess I have enough to kind of work through some of that if necessary.
And the only I should say, one last question. Do you have one of those flamethrowers to kill weeds or brush?
No, I don't.
Occasionally we have to do buffer areas. So if you had one of those, that'd be helpful.
I don't, but I'm sure I could always find a place where one could be procured.
Awesome. Thank you. Sure. Fred?
George, I just want to thank you for applying for this position. Somebody with your experience and the knowledge, I think would fit in well with a nonprofit organization. Your planning, your MBA, I think it dovetails well with the other members of the group. And because this is basically what farmland preservation is, it's a land management group that has hundreds and hundreds of acres of farmland to deal with. And I think your skill set would work well with them. And I look forward to you being on the committee.
Well, I appreciate that, and I look forward to doing it as well.
So I'm going to
wanna
fill
pass
the
it
gap
along,
and just
Fred?
start talking.
There you go.
George, I thank you. You know, I understand that in some ways maybe you were recruited, and I appreciate that you've been participating, attending, however we're going to phrase it, meetings to really get a gist of what they do and make sure that it's, you know, parallels to your interests. And I think that's great. And I really, you know, I'm happy that you volunteered. Look forward to your participation, but nonetheless, and I say this only because I have to torture someone else, this degree from the University of Pennsylvania, I don't know.
What did you do? Go to
Dan?
Princeton?
No, but Dan went to Penn, so we have to make
Oh.
as many Penn jokes as we can.
Oh, okay. I saw the Penn relays on the other thing while I was waiting in the room, so I was wondering. I figured somebody there had to be Penn alumni besides me.
Thank you, George.
You're welcome.
I knew someone was going to say it. So, James, I assume I'm up.
I think she gave you a proper introduction.
I don't know about that, but an introduction nonetheless, right? So, Mr. Hines, thank you for coming through. I did notice the chemical engineering degree from the University of Pennsylvania. You can't go
Yep.
wrong with that. As I get a couple of them from there, but
Penn State?
not. I'll show you the T-shirt that says not Penn State. Sorry, Fred, but the my wife is also a Quaker, so we have a house full here.
Okay.
Notice
Yeah.
I'm wearing blue and white, but I'm not going to go.
I won't hold it against you.
Add a little red to that and you'll be fine.
Exactly. But no, honestly, farmland preservation is a very important group to make sure that we can preserve farmland and the agriculture moving forward. I think that's a big draw to Lower Makefield, and I think that was very forward thinking by prior boards to keep that going. So I'm always excited when knowledgeable folks, smart folks who want to volunteer their time to help promote that come in. And on the financial side, obviously, numbers, if you're a chemical engineer, that's not the easy one, and the MPA. So I think that's great. And quite honestly, I think looks like you've worked a little bit in the food products industry there as well. Not that directly correlates, but it from a process and supply chain, et cetera, tying that back to agriculture is always important too. So that said, thank you. And if you have any questions for me, I've never been the farmland preservation liaison, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Go Quakers.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have any other questions at this time. I want to thank you for putting your name in, for this committee. It's much appreciated, and you will hear from someone shortly.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I appreciate talking with each of you this evening.
Thanks. Take care.
Take care. Have a good evening.
Yep. Bye.
Thanks.
I think we are done with the interviews. We have about 5 minutes. If we could just go off and then come back at 7:30.
Excellent.
Good evening and welcome to the January 19th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting. If I could have everybody please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of
the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, gonna do a quick roll call. Supervisor Lewis,
Here.
Supervisor Weiss,
Here.
Supervisor Grenier,
Here.
and Supervisor Blundy.
Here,
Okay, thank you so much. Just a reminder, public comment on agenda items will be taken as each agenda item is discussed. Kurt, do we have a COVID-19 update at this time?
I'm sorry, did you say COVID update?
Yes.
Sure. So we have the building open at our regular hours. We are rotating staff. One, to keep them safe, to keep the public safe, to have adequate spacing. So if you come in and it looks a little bit more empty than you're used to, that's planned. I think for the time being, we'll keep doing that. At least through the end of the month, where we see how things are. We're doing that with all the administrative departments. We're working to keep people safe, tested as needed, and I'll keep the board updated with any relevant information. Thank you.
Thank you much. Moving on to item number 5, community announcement. I'd like to make an announcement. I'd like to take a brief moment to acknowledge the loss of one of our zoning hearing board members, Mike Tritt. Mike was a great source of expertise and served the township with great professionalism, and he will be sorely missed. In lieu of flowers, memorial contributions may be made to the Wounded Warrior Project. At this time, I'd request a moment of silence. Thank you. Are there any other community announcements? Seeing none, we are moving on to agenda item number 6, consider approval of minutes for December 15th, 2021. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 7, consider approval of minutes for January 3rd, 2022. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Oh, I'm sorry.
Question before you move on.
Yes.
So you're aware, the December 1st minutes still need to be approved. Those were being finalized and we didn't have a chance to get them on the agenda. They will appear on the 1st February agenda from the December 1st meeting. We'll make sure you have those, since that'll be going on 2 or 3 months ago, with ample background time to review them, so you're comfortable with them.
Awesome. Thank you for clarification. Just to make sure, we had a motion and a vote on item number 7 for the approval of minutes for January 3rd, 2022. And I heard a 5-0 unanimous vote. Moving on to agenda item number 8, the treasurer's report. Ms. Blundy.
And here's my swing and a miss at the start of 2022. I'm sorry, I forgot that I was the treasurer. I did not calculate all the numbers that need to be calculated and shared with you all. Can we come back to me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, I think the next one's going to be
So
a
may I say
big one,
something?
sure.
I think even though the motion reads that way, if you want to make a motion that they would be individually listed, if we want to do it that way, if you have access to that, Suzanne, if you don't, I can get the sheet where we can do that versus adding them all up into one motion.
So we skip along and then I will tell you what I need.
Sure. I guess we can skip to the next one, even though it seems like it might be a little bit lengthy. So this will give you ample time to figure that
Do
out.
my
So,
math and carry my work.
Jen, if you want me to make the motion to help you out a little bit, I can do that. I have the total in front of me.
If you're comfortable, Dan, that would be great.
I would be
I'll
okay
do
with
them
that.
individually. Because they're on the last page of the PDF. I'm just cheating.
Sure.
like to make a motion to approve the warrants from January 3rd, 2022 in the amount of $442,543.38.
I'll
Do I hear a
second it.
second? Suzanne, second. So Supervisor Grenier made the motion. It was second by Supervisor Blondie. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Sorry.
Next one, Dan?
Yep, I'm swiping quickly.
Okay.
Let's see, make sure. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to approve the warrants from January 18th, 2022 in the amount of $1,092,117.26.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.
And there's one more. I'd like to make a motion to approve the warrants from December 20th, 2021 in the amount of $822,239.16.
Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you, Dan. Thank
Thanks
you.
That was
for
Sue.
doing-
pressure. No problem.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, moving along to item number 9, sewer engineer. Do we have Mr. Ebert online? There he is. Good evening, Fred. How are you?
I'm doing great. Good evening, everyone.
Good to see you. So you have a couple items here that you want to go over. If you want to start with 9A, please.
Yes, which is payment request number 1 for contract SWR 21-2. This is a sanitary sewer main cured in place contract or pipeline project. The contractor has completed the majority of the work. The only items that are remaining after this are the payment of the closeout and making sure that all restoration work is done, as well as we receive all the required certifications and paperwork. The payment request is in the amount of $221,119.64.
I'll entertain a motion.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Looks
Second.
like Mr. Supervisor Weiss made the motion. Suzanne Blondie seconded the motion. Any discussion? Dan,
James,
yes. Yes,
I'm
sir.
not sure if you could see me there.
Yep.
Mr. Ebert, I'm just wanting to confirm, it looks like there's just short of $83,000 left in the
On the
budget there.
contract?
Yeah.
Yes.
What do we, basically what's left in that?
Closeout is the single biggest item. And there's actually, we will come in under contract price because some of the unit items that we had estimated are actually going to come in less based on this. So really, we're down to closeout is really the biggest remaining item that's going to be there. All the remaining items are unit prices that weren't there that we didn't have to do in there. And then release of retainage, obviously.
Okay.
We're still holding 10% retainage.
I got you. And then what, I can't remember on this one. Was this one started in 2020 or 2021?
2021.
21. Okay.
Yeah. This is the last lining project that this board is responsible for.
So I'm curious then, sorry, James, do we have a grand total on our master lining projects, how we ended up?
I don't have that.
Okay.
As far as the total amount of money that we spent?
Versus budget value.
No, I didn't go back to the 2020 and combine those in there. But I would say that we're within, compared to the budget, I don't know. Compared to our contract, we're probably going to be within 10 to 15%.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this one will come in about 10% low.
I like saving money.
Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Ebert? Since I have heard none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1 with Supervisor Grenier opposing. I believe, item B1, Mr. Ebert.
Yes, this is payment request number 3 for contract SWR 20-4D Stackhouse Pump Station upgrade. The payment request is in the amount of $52,250. This is for the installation of the pumps and controls. We had previously paid about 75% of that. They're now all installed, all ready to go. So this is, I look for a recommend or a motion to recommend payment in the amount of $52,250.
I'll
So
entertain a
moved.
motion.
So move, James.
Motion by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye and raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Motion carries 5-0. B2.
B2 is consideration of a change order for the Stackhouse Pump Station upgrade, contract SWR 20-4D. This is for a change order to install the electric service to the pump station in order to meet PICO standards. This was an anticipated change order. Basically, until we're ready for PICO to energize it, PICO will not tell us exactly where they're going to bring in the electric and how far. The change order is in the amount of $21,424.50. The majority of this is for the installation of an additional pole to come in. PICO will bring it 100 feet from their existing service connection. Once they identify that, we're then responsible to extend it to our site. The contract had a delineated area of what the contractor was required to bring it to. We knew there would be a missing section and there would be a change order. This is common, unfortunately, with the way PICO does business. So I would look for a recommendation or a motion to approve change order number 4 in the amount of $21,424.50. I will also note that the contractor has agreed to remove the existing electric pole on the existing Stackhouse pump station for no charge to us, and to have that PICO will come in and de-energize it. They will then take down that pole that's in someone's backyard, so that it will no longer be there.
So
I'll
moved.
entertain- Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion?
Yeah.
James,
John beat you to it.
sorry,
Go ahead,
that's
John.
okay.
So has PICO been responsive to your request, Fred? And are they in the critical path in any way for completing the project other than changing specs?
They no longer are. They
Okay.
were. We had reached out through Kurt and Greg Hucklebridge to use our municipal contact because they were not responding to the contractor and it was delaying the closing of this project. So once those contacts were made, they were very responsive to both Kurt and Greg's calls. That person helped expedite it. And as a result, we got off the dime and were able to get this service and meter request so we can have this pump station operational as soon as we approve this. Well, approve this change order. Contractor does the work, but everything's there ready. And we have the pole already.
Excellent, thank you.
And Dan, I believe you had a question as well?
Yeah, yes. That's got to be frustrating, Fred, for the contractor. Hopefully that's, yeah, go ahead.
I deal with I literally have 20 pump stations out there. I'm doing this one every single one. And luckily here, you guys were very effective in getting that municipal out there, but we don't know. We don't know where they're going to give us power from other than they'll give us the first 100 feet.
Yeah, that's frustrating. No need to belabor that one, but I just want to make sure in that extra area that needs to be cleared for the new pole, and I'm trying to do this from memory, what does that clearing entail? Were they large trees where there's just shrubbery they had to open up for a new pole, or what did that look like?
Mostly shrubbery. We had actually already cleared that as part of the original design because we knew where it would come down from the road onto our site. So that was cleared. There was one poplar tree of about 24 inches that had to go down, but other than that, it was all shrubbery.
It didn't in that area. There's a couple houses nearby. I just want to make sure the buffers are still there. And
they are all still there, and
Good.
we work very closely with all of them. And the only complaint that we had on the entire job so far was once the fence was up, which is our next payment request, they wanted to see all the equipment moved off. Our contractor kept his equipment there, just so we didn't pay mobilization. So, but they have been great. That was a next door neighbor. But we keep the middle misses very much there. And we even move things further onto our site during the clearing as just a field change to keep that buffer there and actually increase it from what the original design plans had.
Good. All right.
Any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? 0. Motion carries 5-0. And I believe you have one more, Fred, item B3.
Yes. Last item is contract SWR 20-4D Stackhouse Pump Station. Again, this is payment request number 4 in the amount of $14,250. This is for the installation of the fence. So the fence is up there, and the only thing that's remaining on this job right now is going to be the emergency generator is really the last really remaining item here. And that's just been backlog. And the fence, it was, once again, supply chain. We literally couldn't get the fence up until, well, we got it in November. It was actually completed in November until they got their payment request in. So this is for the installation of the fence.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. I'll second it.
So I believe it was Supervisor Blundy that made the motion and seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Did I get that right?
I think Fred made the motion. Yeah.
Oh, Fred, I'm sorry. The screen went weird
I
on
didn't
me.
know I looked that good, so.
Supervisor Weiss made the motion. It was seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any discussion or questions by any of the supervisors? Seeing none, I will entertain a vote. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you so much, Fred.
Thank you, guys. Be well.
Hey, Fred.
You too, Fred.
Moving on to agenda item number 10, Engineers Report. Andy, I believe
Yes,
you
hello,
have some things to
Supervisor.
talk about, starting with number A.
Yes, number A, or letter A, is consider authorization for advertisement of the 2022 road program. There should be a map of the road program or the roads that are within the road program coming up on the screen. So there are 56 roads within the base bid for the 2022 road program. They are on that map in the light blue or cyan color. They cover numerous neighborhoods throughout the township. If you'll remember, there was a budget of approximately $3 million for the 2022 road program. With our estimate, there is our estimate has these 56 roads being approximately just under $2.9 million. So we anticipate having a little bit of wiggle room. So we are adding some alternates to the bid. They are in yellow with blue text on the map there. So the first add alternate would be the Memorial Park wearing course. So this is the parking lot area that was not paved under the Memorial Park project. This would be paved under the road program project. And based on the numbers that we received via bid for Memorial Park project, that's estimated to be approximately $43,000. The other roads that we've included in the add alternate would be in the Yardley Run development, and that would be alternates 2 through 6 for Wellington Drive, East and West, Fountain Drive, North Bradford Road, and Wingate Drive. Those would all be individually alternate bids, so the Board of Supervisors could award the base bid and any one of those alternates going forward. We anticipate putting this out on pen bid beginning of February, and the bid opening at the beginning of March, and the Board of Supervisors being able to vote on approval of the bids at the second meeting in March, which I believe is March 17th.
Excellent. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to consider authorization for advertisement of the 2022 road program.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second,
Motion
I guess.
made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. I will open up to discussion, but before I do, I just had a quick question for Andy or Kurt. So I believe that you told us how many miles were going to be a part of this program?
This
can
is
answer that.
10.7 miles would be those roads. There are approximately 4 roads that are being included in the road program that are scheduled to be paved by the Public Works Department and therefore would not be a part of the bid. And they comprise approximately 0.27 miles.
Okay. So what's the
So in
Kurt?
total for this year, remember, we also are participating, we'll be making payment to Falls Township for the 2 roads we did last year. So even though they're done last year, we will put that into the total. So all in with everything Andy just mentioned in those, the road program this year would encompass 11.41 miles.
And-
Now, hold on, let me say,
Sure.
11.41 essentially on the base bid. So if we end up being able to get in, we get good pricing. You know, last year we added Silo Road, which was significant. So that would be absent any additional paving that we may be able to do as part of the alternate bid.
What have we historically been doing?
It has varied essentially for the time that we use the liquid fuels funding. We've used some bond money and stuff in the past to do that, but it would essentially be 2.5 miles or so a year.
Okay, so this is almost,
This is about the equivalent of about 4 years worth of paving.
okay.
And just as a reminder to everybody, we have the money from the liquid fuels fund, which is the state funding for paving. Dave will talk about this a little bit in the budget for the road loan for this year. We also have some money, not an inconsequential amount, from the American Rescue Plan that we are applying to this, which is sort of a one-time push stimulus into that we wouldn't normally have, that helped us essentially add another year into paving. So typically we would expect maybe 750,000 in paving or so from the liquid fuels fund. The American Rescue Plan money will allow us to add about that much in there. So the equivalent of 1 extra year of paving.
Okay. And I guess just to follow up to that, because it is such a, exponentially a greater amount of roads that it typically has been, as part of the advertisement, will the contractors be giving us some type of traffic flow mitigation or some kind of scheme that they're going to come up with?
Yep.
Because it seems like it is way more than what it typically is. I just want to make sure that there's no, interruption. In
I don't
traffic.
want to take Andy's thunder from him, but regardless of how much you pave, whether it's a small town that does 3 or 4 roads or our typical program that might be 10 or 11, remember, they're going to stage and essentially move through the area where they do things. So that certainly that was going to require coordination with the engineering department, but as well as the police department. So we can give adequate notice, so we can work to have as minimal disruptions as possible.
And I guess what the residents need to understand is there's going to be some interruption, but obviously it's short.
Well, I mean, and frankly, the interruptions they're going to have would be no more than if we were just doing their neighborhood. We're just doing many neighborhoods.
Okay.
So, mhm.
All right, that's all I had. Did anybody else have any questions or comments? Suzanne?
Thank you, James. Andy,
Yes,
reflectors where appropriate included?
they are on collector roads, including Woodside, Quarry, Creamery, and I believe a portion of Bluestone. So
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks. Dan, I believe you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, wanted to reiterate what you were saying and what Kurt was saying. As part of the bid, advertising. Just hoping that we can emphasize in the bid docs that the importance of traffic controls and coordination and all that stuff, right? When you do a high volume, that's can be a concern. But if they can execute it properly, this will be great, right? The other thing I'm wondering, do we have any, when we talk about, I'll say carrot versus stick, right? Is there any sticks built into that if they do create issues or if they miss schedules and whatnot? I'd really like to see how they plan to schedule this pretty clearly provided in their bid docs to make sure that everyone's comfortable with their plan of attack on this one.
So we do have, in the specifications, we are working in language that basically indicates that the contractor cannot leave a road in a milled condition. So they come in and they mill the roadway. They can't leave it in a milled condition for more than 7 days, 7 calendar days.
Mhm.
So that will motivate them to mill a smaller area or a neighborhood and then come in and pave it within 7 calendar days after that. That's all weather
Okay.
pending, all that.
And-
But-
yeah, go ahead. And
we
you
also
still
have
going?
other language that identifies that they must complete one neighborhood before they move on to another neighborhood.
Okay. Now with this, depending on how they execute it, right, that could be a lot of inspection work to do at one time as well. Are we, and we've had some feedback about some of the paving and inspection from some folks. Just want to make sure that we have enough folks ready to go for inspections so that we're comfortable with that. So do the contractors provide that, or is that the service that you're providing, Andy? Or is it a mix?
That's part of what we provide for construction management services. And so, yes, we do have inspectors that are all PennDOT certified, and they will, we're anticipating having 2 inspectors on the project this summer, just because it's a large program, and the contractor could possibly have 2 crews working, one side of the township versus another crew working the south end of the township.
Gotcha.
I'd also like to add, Supervisor Grenier, that our Public Works Director is also a PE, and we fully anticipate having him out there as well, that if he sees anything and he has to grab an inspector, what have you, that he's qualified to do that as well. Not that he's going to be out there inspecting, but, he is out there on these roads when they will be paving. He'll be out there.
And they're his roads, so I know
Might be
he's
out there.
got a vested interest. Kurt, actually, I'm glad I heard your voice because I wasn't sure if you stepped away for a second. Question for you. I've been getting, since we voted on the roads back for the budget, I've been getting requests for a couple of roads specifically that have gotten pretty beaten up the last couple of years, to the point where people are, complaining about tires and going for walks and twisting ankles. Kind of like what we looked when we were talking about Maple Vale earlier, when before the patchwork occurred, which was a great job, by the way. And I know Maple Vale's on this list. What would be our process for roads that we're seeing are not on this list right now, that are especially beat up, not just like cracks and don't look nice, but like there's extensive potholing, et cetera? How would we address those, whether it's short term or slightly longer term?
Well, short term, it would be contacting the Public Works Director or me to get those on the list if there are short-term measures that can take place. I would add, because I've gotten a couple of calls, that even though Andy already said this, the alternate bids essentially are the roads in Yardley Run, which we determined, and if you go there, clearly need paved and essentially are in year 2 of this paving program for 2023. Whether or not, how many of those we can fit in, I don't know. But if there are other concerns or questions, as you know, we continually work to create updated 3-year plans. Those 3-year plans would include what we include in the road program and then what we have the Public Works Department do. The goal of the Public Works Department, even though this year is quantified, is to actually pave about 0.3 of a mile, as Andy had said, actually 0.27 this year. So we could look and see the scope and scale of what the work is, if it's a short-term fix like cold patch, or if it's beyond that and we actually need to crack seal or to saw cut and pour hot asphalt in there. That could be a temporary measure, which is essentially what we did that you mentioned on Maple Vale earlier this year. That would be the alternative.
All right, short version is, Kurt, I'll shoot you an email with some of the roads that I've gotten just to
Perfect.
help you out. And then my last question, you mentioned the alternates. It just visually it sticks out to me, so I guess I'll ask. For that neighborhood, it looks like we're doing every road but Chase Road. As in the alternate, is there any specific reason it's in better shape, or is just when we run the numbers, adding that much in puts us over the hump or something?
Well, we included everything that was listed in year 2 in the road paving program for Yardley Run. Wellington, East and West, Fountain, North Bradford Drive, and Wingate. The other road I'd have to discuss with staff.
Chase was done a few years ago.
Okay, thanks, Chief.
Oh, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah. Chief knows the neighborhood, I think. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
John, do you have any questions?
No.
Supervisor Weiss?
I'm good.
Okay. So I guess we have a motion. Yeah, is there any public comment out there? We're checking. No public comment at this time. Okay, so the motion's on the floor. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
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 All opposed? None. So the motion carries 5-0. So moving on to 10B, consider authorization for advertisement of the pool painting project.
Yes, this would be painting of 3 pools and with an ad alternate to paint the baby pool. So in the base bid would be the Olympic pool, the lap swimming pool, and the intermediate swimming pool. In discussions with township staff, they believe that if need be, if pricing comes in high, then the baby pool can go another year without being painted, possibly. And so that is an ad alternate.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we advertise the pool painting project bid request.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Supervisor Weiss with the second, Supervisor Lewis with the motion. Any discussion?
Yeah.
Any public comment?
Oh, James, sorry.
Sure, Dan.
Slow in the draw. I guess similar questions to what we were talking about the road program in terms of, in this case, more about warranties and making sure that we have clear schedules, make sure that we get the pool open on time, all that other good stuff. I'm assuming that's written into the bid docs.
It is. The work has to be completed by Friday, April 15th.
So about a month and a half before opening. Good.
Can I make one point, please, for the,
Absolutely.
just so I want everyone to be aware, the bid you will see this year will be much more expensive than the bid you saw last year. Not just because prices have gone up, but last year's bid in part because of the work of Andy and the staff. In 2020, when everything shut down, we had already purchased lots of paint, and then we did not follow through with that. But because the contractor had already incurred that cost, we purchased all that paint from them and kept it. And part of the bid last year included enough paint for some of those pools. So as such, this is back to a more normal year where they get the paint, they provide all of the prices, and we very well could see prices in the neighborhood to paint these of $70,000 would not be surprising.
Thank you for that, Kurt. Any other discussion? Seeing none, is there any public comment regarding this topic? No public comment on the line. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to item 10C.
10C is to consider authorization for advertisement of the community park tennis court repairs project. There's some cracking on the tennis courts over by the pool. There are 4 tennis courts there. And this bid would be to repair those cracks, seal them, and then put a surface coating on top of all of the tennis courts and paint the lines for all of the tennis courts. We had talked with contractors who were actually the sub who was doing Memorial Park this past year to get some pricing. So that estimate is in the neighborhood of $56,000. That's a quote that they gave us last year. Therefore, that's over the bidding threshold for just allowing us to award it to them. So we need to put it out for public bid. Therefore, we're requesting authorization to advertise for this work.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Make a motion. Second.
Motion made by Supervisor Lewis, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Is there any discussion?
Quick question for you. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, John.
He had his hand up first.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Andy, have you reviewed the basketball courts in that same area? And are there any issues with them?
I did before the winter, so I will go back out and look, review them currently before we put this out for bid, to make sure that if there's any cracking within there, we could potentially incorporate that into this project.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. That's all I had.
Dan, did you have a question as well?
Yeah, quickly. And Andy, I can't remember if we did or not. I vaguely remember a conversation about this in the last couple of years. Did we do this the same or similar at the Schuyler courts or another set of courts in the last handful of years?
No, we did not. We put together a report, I think, back in 2018 of the Schuyler courts, but we have not done any work over there.
And the only reason I ask is sort of for comparison purposes, anything that maybe didn't go right with the last contractor at Schuyler courts or any other courts, right? I'm just have a vague recollection of some concerns about how work was done to make sure that in this case that we keep an eye on the contract, any contractor, to, if it's remotely possible, that the similar issue could occur, that we just keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we'll do.
Any other questions? Any public comment? No public comment? Okay, all those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Andy. Oh, I'm sorry. I almost cut you off. You had one more.
Yes, there is one.
10D.
10D is to consider escrow release. This would be the final escrow release for the Yardley Woods development, which is on Budney Drive and Big Oak Road, in the amount of $19,986.12. I've confirmed with township staff that all the paperwork is in order. We have reviewed the field conditions, and we understand that they have addressed all of the punch list items that we had. And we have also received a notice of termination or an authorization for release of the stormwater management system from the Bucks County Conservation District. And therefore, we're recommending release of final escrow in the amount of $19,986.12.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Supervisor Weiss, seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any discussion? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll take a vote. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
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 All opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. And with that, Andy, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a great night. Moving on to agenda item number 11, project updates.
I'll take questions, but before I do that, I just want to point out on 11A, as apparently I had a call from someone concerned that 11A meant something dramatic. I'm going to ask Joe Fiacco, the traffic engineer, to come in February. As we had indicated when the project went in, we would monitor the area, look to see if there were additional changes that were needed. And as a reminder, we've done a few things that we've reported on. We put LED lights over both the roundabouts on Mill and Schuyler. We trimmed some trees back that we weren't originally anticipating doing. We added some markers leading up to those roundabouts to go slow. Joe is going to come back with a recommendation, not to steal his thunder, but of a sign and some type of anti-skid material to be put on the road as you come down from the tracks towards Sandy Run Road. I had some calls with some people that I don't know, they think we're proposing a third roundabout or something of that sort, which is, so I just want everyone to rest assured that what his recommendations are going to be the continued sort of maintenance that we're going to provide, that we can make this better, safer, easier to easier for people to navigate. And so hopefully one of those February meetings, he'll come here to do a brief presentation on those suggestions.
Thank you.
I don't have anything else in reports unless there's any questions.
Does any of the supervisors have any questions on project updates A through F? Is there any public comment on any of those items? None at this time. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 12, managers report. Back to you, Kurt.
Sure, I'll be quick. So in my manager's report, I had outlined all of you, and for the public, it's going to be a little different this year with the road program. Traditionally, we make the advertisement, the motion to advertise, and a meeting or two later, we award it. Part of the process, and Dave's going to talk about this a little bit, is going to involve this road loan that's going to help finance part of the project this year. So at our next meeting on February 2nd, I anticipate presenting with the approval of the chair, two motions. One to actually authorize that debt ordinance. It's essentially a process that the board does, but that the solicitor will work behind the scenes with the Commonwealth to get approved, to authorize that advertisement. And second, a motion to advertise getting proposals to actually do the financing from the institution that will do it. It would be a $1,650,000 loan. We'd get quotes for it. We do that with equipment on short-term leases. This would be essentially a road loan with the motion for that, hopefully on February 2nd. We'd give the board a break at the second February meeting, but then on the first March meeting, which is March 5th, we would anticipate a vote for consideration to actually approve the ordinance for that lending of $1,650,000, and a vote on the resolution authorizing who would be financing that deal on March 5th. Then with both of those items in place, as the engineer had mentioned before, on March 19th, the award for who would actually be doing the paving that the board would consider. So we're going to be talking about roads a lot until March 19th to get it all authorized, and then probably afterwards as they start. But I just want you all to be aware of that.
Kurt, I appreciate that. I think I called you when I saw this, and the one question I had was there any advantage of moving that the March 5th votes to the second meeting in February to kind of get us ahead? Is there any competitive advantage of having us commit to a road program with a contractor as far as maybe getting better pricing? Have you seen that in historically?
I mean, I don't think, because the one date that we're going to be sitting in there is still going to be that March 19th award. You know, that March 19th award is still
pretty early for
fairly
most?
early compared to lots of other places, and I think a lot earlier than we used to do it. So yeah, you know, in the end, I don't know if we can get like 15 people in your firm to do the loan stuff, but no, but I still, but the thing is even if we move that up,
doesn't change the
I
market.
mean, a lot of the advantage we have this year as well, as we did last year, is I engaged the engineers to do a lot of the measurements and the road work and the estimates and the road conditions in the fall. So, you know, instead of having to do that now, which a lot of towns are doing, and it's delaying them, Andy will tweak some things, confirm what they have, put all that stuff together, get the bid packets out. And so essentially what he's saying is he's going to need just a couple of weeks to do that, which is a very short time frame. So we really have truncated that down to a fairly narrow process where hopefully we're out there paving sooner rather than later.
And I guess from a logistical standpoint, if there's, you know, things that happen, obviously from fall to spring, there's things that can happen, you know.
I'd like to do this all in one meeting, to be honest.
Yeah, I know.
Get it done, but yeah.
But if those things happen, obviously, then, you know, we'll be on top of those things. But I appreciate the effort to get it done as early as possible. I think it does put us at a good advantage.
Second, not that this is all that groundbreaking in terms of something. I just want you all to be aware when you see these. I've instructed Katie, who puts the resolutions together, to change the way that we number these. So for all of you that have asked for resolutions, like, did we pass a resolution? And like, if we just continue to number them and I tell you, oh yeah, that was resolution number 3,194. We'll number them now with the year 2022. And if we do 50 of them this year, we'll have 1 through 50, and then 2023, 1 through 20. should make it a lot easier to track, a lot easier to see, a lot easier if you all are being questioned about something. That narrows it down. The problem now is if you say to me, Kurt, I think we passed a resolution back in 2015. I have to look through a book to find, it could be books and books before we get there. So this should be more efficient, both for open records requests and for the board moving forward. But you'll start to see that when resolutions are numbered, we're starting the two tonight are resolution 1 and 2 for 2022. And that's how we'll proceed going forward.
Excellent. I appreciate the streamline in the process for sure. And I'm sure the staff appreciates it too. All right. So was that it for you on manager's report then? Excellent. Does anybody have any questions? Any of the other supervisors have any questions regarding A or B in the manager's report?
James, a quick one on, I think it's B, if
Yep.
you don't mind. And Kurt, this is a super simple one. It's more for Dave, just to cover ourselves. When it comes to resolution numbering, there's no specific guidelines or rules we have to follow, right? Just to make sure we check the box.
In fact, I would say that in my experience with other public entities, that the process that Mr. Ferguson is outlining going forward is what is the presumptive practice for most places. It was always odd to me that we had these, numbers that were consecutive from day one, which goes back probably the 50s. And I'm not exaggerating. I think they probably do. So it is from my perspective, it's a much preferable way to go, and it's more standard that I've seen. But there's nothing in any code book or any other place that I've seen that says this is the way that it's mandated by any code, statute, or ordinance or anything like that. So
Perfect. Yeah, I like, just to back up what James said, I like this approach too. I've seen in other places, different states. Just want to make sure our state allows for it. So I'm glad that it does. Thanks.
Excellent. Anybody else? Outstanding. Moving on to item number 13, the solicitor report. Take it away, Mr. Trudeau.
yes, thank you. First of all, I need to report on 2 executive sessions. One that occurred on January 3rd. I realized after looking at my notes that I did not report on the executive session before that meeting. That executive session occurred at 7 p.m. All board members were present at the executive session, along with Chief Caluzzi, Mr. Ferguson, and myself. Personnel and collective bargaining items were discussed at that executive session, which ended right before the reorganization meeting at 7:30 when it started. Tonight, an executive session occurred between 6:30 and 7 p.m. Personnel, litigation, and collective bargaining issues were discussed at that executive session. All board members, as well as the chief, Mr. Ferguson, and myself were present at the executive session. The first matter for discussion tonight, or for consideration, is to approve the final settlement of litigation with the former employee Jane Doe for a total of $307,500 for all claims, with their release from any other existing or potential claims. Since this is a personnel matter, there can't be a lot of discussion in public about it, but I will say that this emanates from a termination of disciplinary proceeding which occurred. It was lengthy and contentious in nature, and it resulted in it had a result that was not favorable to the township, but this result is actually much more favorable to the township than could have been in the other circumstances. And this completely extinguishes any potential claims going forward, and the employee will no longer be employed by the township. And this is something which was engaged in between the employees' representatives and the township.
I may entertain a motion.
Make the motion to approve the final settlement.
Motion made by Supervisor Blundy, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion or questions by any of the supervisors? Oh, John, yes.
Chairman, did you review the final settlement?
I did, yes.
So
I think it was presented to us all in executive session last time.
Yeah, the chief talked about it in an executive session, and he does, I believe, have documents available if they need to be reviewed.
Because I never received the documents for the final settlement, and they're, the best of my knowledge, they're not in.
No, it was not in the FTP file. I agree with you. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the chief had indicated he would make that available upon request.
Okay. Given that I haven't had a chance to review it, just for those, I think I can say this. I made oral representations that I'm in general support of the agreement, but I can't vote for something I haven't reviewed finally.
Just for tonight's approval request, all the specifics in the settlement agreement were discussed. There's nothing additional than what we discussed at the last executive session, but I will provide you with a.
Yeah, if that's the case, I mean, I either suggest that potentially can we table to another meeting, or if you want to reset, how many pages of the
It's-
agreement?
it's 6 pages and it's not lengthy at all.
So if it would please the chair.
Executive session?
Yeah, if it would please the chair, if we could recess for, I can read a page a minute or less. I'm assuming
Whatever
it's.
time you need. I mean, that's.
Sure, we're going to ask for a brief recess in order for Supervisor Lewis to review the physical portion of the settlement. So if you could take us off the air, we'll be back in about 10 minutes.
And this, just for the minutes, Janelle, it's 8:20 for the executive session for a personnel collective bargaining matter. Thank you.
Thank you for giving us that time. Supervisor Lewis had some questions regarding the agreement. Dave, I don't know if you need to summarize what that executive session was.
The executive session was from 8:20 to 8:43 and involved a personnel matter. And we've now reconvened. And I've already read the description and given a brief background. So it'll be appropriate if the board would consider a motion and second.
Okay, thank you for that. So I'm looking for a motion on item 13A.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Is there any discussion? Any public comment? None heard. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. The next two matters are really just house cleaning matters. Maybe I should take this off. You may recall that our, I think, December 15th meeting, easements for these two items were approved. What we did not have before you, because I think it was under the zoning inspections and planning report, we didn't have the actual resolutions. So these are actually the resolutions to approve the actions that you took approximately a month ago. So I guess I just asked for consideration to approve and with the new numbering system. Resolution 22-1 for the Pricker Preserve Water easement. And the second would be Resolution 22-2 for the Acorn Drive access and utility easement. And I would authorize Mr. Ferguson to sign each of those.
Dave, do you want these as separate motions?
Separate, I think would be
Okay,
best,
So I
yes.
need a motion for Resolution 22-1. Do I hear one?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? The motion is made by Supervisor Grenier, seconded by Supervisor Blondie. Any discussion? Any public comment? No public comment. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
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 Any opposed? None. Motion or resolution carries 5-0. Resolution 22-2. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Looks like Dan beat you to it. So motion is made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any discussion? Any public comment? All in favor, say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 22-2 carries 5-0.
Thank you. Next, this brief discussion will dovetail with what Kurt and Andy both discussed previously about the road paving program that's proposed. The proposal is by the administration to finance this with a note, which would be through a competitive process from a financial institution, probably a bank in this situation. The process is similar to what we do, but much more streamlined and simple in this case for a note as opposed to a bond. But however, for a bond issue, just like with a note, an ordinance has to be passed authorizing the supervisors to take the action and outlining circumstances which are consistent with the Local Government Unit Debt Act, which has certain requirements about how much can be borrowed, what the debt ceiling, debt borrowing limit is, and some other factors that are required also to make sure that once the ordinance is authorized and then passed and enacted, that the Department of Community and Economic Development also approves it, which is again kind of a, I won't say pro forma, but it's something once everything is lined up should be done. Mr. Ferguson has already outlined the process. This would be kind of a parallel process along with the process for advertising the road program itself. And then at the appropriate time, which would be, I guess, in early March, I'm sorry, to authorize the borrowing. And then there'd be, then early March, also the resolution to award the highway loan to the low bank bidder. So at some point in the next couple of weeks as well, it'd be to authorize the township to request, solicit bids from different banks to actually to submit the proposals as to the financing, which would, obviously involve terms primarily involving the interest rate, things like that. So
Do you need a motion for this or?
no, this is just kind of a little background. Again, it dovetails with what Kurt said. I don't know, Kurt, you want to?
I just wanted the board to be aware that there's going to be background work that's going on with the solicitor's office in the state. And we'll certainly keep you in the loop on that's different than just a normal ordinance. That is not as far reaching as what you need to do to float a bond, but still has to go through what this called the Unit Debt Act and all of the legal behind the scenes approvals that we get from the state, as David mentioned. And I just wanted you all to be aware of that.
Any supervisor feedbacks on this?
Just one in general.
Thank you.
My concern on this is that the rate of return that will be paying, the cost of the interest is more than the rate of return that we would earn on the money that we have in theory coming from the sewer sale. How much of, what's the rough interest rate that you project it to be?
This money is separate from the sewer sale.
Understand that.
So in the end, the way I make the comparison, Supervisor Lewis, is the cost of the money versus what we would expect to see in terms of year-over-year inflation or increases in paving year over year. So if we roll 4 years up and let's say we get the interest rate at 2.25%, as an example, that amount to do that upfront at 2.25% still is a better deal than 5% or so inflation year over year on paving that we're seeing.
Fully agree. I'm just saying the rate of return we would get on cash.
On cash, 0.3% to 0.5%.
All right.
If in other words, if for the money sitting there, yes, I was making a more direct comparison.
Yep. All right.
Any other questions? Okay, moving on to agenda item number 13E in the Solicitor's Report, zoning
Yes,
hearing board summary.
last one, zoning hearing board summary. There's been some sentiment that perhaps items that do not require board participation for zoning hearing board appeals need to be discussed publicly, but there are 3 matters that were considered by the board, and I will certainly recite them briefly. They're all requests for installations of in-ground pools or something that we've seen frequently. None of them were reported to be in any flood zones. The first 22-1946 Stephen and Caitlin Tamburo, a property located at 1 Plymouth Lane, tax parcel 20-020-132, are requesting a variance from Township Ordinance 200-23 capital B to increase the impervious surface from the existing 15.6 to 19.3%, where 18% is allowed. Again, to install a concrete in-ground pool and patio. Again, in my review and in any comments received either from the board or from administration, there were no indications that we should do anything other than defer to the zoning hearing board. I'll certainly throw that out there if that is, there's a different sentiment, but that was the recommendation we had based upon the information we had.
So
Dave,
at this
if I-
time,
or-
I'm going to, hold on a sec, Dan. At this time, I'm going to entertain a motion on whether or not we should participate or object to any of these 3 zoning applications. Do I have one?
I'll make a motion to, actually, I kind of want to make a different motion that's not quite, I'd like to make a motion to have our engineer attend the meeting to provide clarifying statements on all 3 items.
So just to clarify, you'd like to make a motion to participate in the meeting?
Sure. Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I don't want to send our attorneys to make it seem like we're totally against. I want our engineer to make sure that technical items are clarified, because I think in all 3 instances, different scenarios present themselves that I think an engineer could clarify.
Isn't our engineer part of those meetings?
I know Mr. Majewski attends those.
So he's already
I don't
part
know
of
if
those
that Mr.
meetings,
Township engineer.
Yeah.
correct?
The township engineer is not attending.
Mr. Majewski does not attend those meetings?
He attends. He's not the township engineer. He's the head of zoning inspections and planning. He's a PE.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're asking for Mr. Majewski, well, Mr. Majewski is going to be there, but also
Mr. Pokel's on.
Mr. Andy.
Mr.
to,
Pokel, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's the motion. Does that, is it specifically that we participate from our professional standpoint with our engineer? Is that the motion?
Either authorized, I
That's-
think, authorized by participation by sending the engineer.
Okay,
Is that correct?
yep. All right, so
That's fair. I will,
Supervisor Grenier made the motion. It was seconded by Supervisor Lewis. Any discussion?
sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just clarify. Some of these are pretty minor, but it's on number 22-1946. In reviewing the plan set, there may be the survey that was used as the base survey may be outdated and predate some recent work that included an addition to the back of the house that includes a roof and additional impervious areas. So I want to make sure the pool is not not going much above the approved. What I want to make sure is that the numbers are correct to make sure that the applicant is whole. So I just want to make sure that the current state of the home and level of impervious area is correct in the variance request, so that he doesn't have to go back and get another one at some point or something like that.
Okay.
That's 1946. 1947. No,
Want me to read that one into the record? I can do that.
Oh, I'm
if-
sorry.
if-
Yeah, go
if
ahead.
you wouldn't mind, we'll
That's
just
okay. I
have
just want
Dave
to make
read it.
sure that
Yep.
so once we do that, they'll understand the motion. Appeal 22-1947, Matthew and Ann Moyer, a property located at 1428 Revere Road, tax parcel number 20-059-028. They're requesting a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23 capital B. Again, the same ordinance as the matter before, to increase impervious surface from existing 25.12% to 30.91%, where 18% is the allowable amount, again, to install a concrete in-ground pool and patio. And I believe in this case and in the others, and I'm not commenting on the plan sets or anything like that. There are mitigation measures which are proposed for each one of these stormwater mitigation. So I'm sorry, Mr. Supervisor Grender, you want to talk about this one now in particular as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, this one represents, if my quick back on napkin math is correct, about a 72% increase over what the allowable impervious area is for a site. So oftentimes when we have increases that are more than a small percentage, right, we would participate in some way to make sure that the neighbors are not impacted because of drastically increased impervious area. I would also note that oddly enough, in our definitions in our ordinances, I didn't realize this till recently, but we don't include the area within the coping of a pool, basically the water and the base of a pool, as impervious in our ordinances. Whereas if I were to design a pond or something in some land development or a pool, many other places, the pool itself would be considered impervious. So when you look at pools, I know that our ordinance is what it is, but when you look at pools, they almost get the surface area of a pool is a freebie when it comes to impervious area. And when you have a 72% increase, not even including the surface area of the pool, that's cause for concern.
Okay.
And the final one is appeal number 22-1948, Gary and Judy Reese, for property located at 969 Princess Drive, tax parcel number 20-057-019. They're requesting a variance from Township Zoning Ordinance 200-23 capital B to increase the impervious surface from existing 24.8% to 26%, where 18% is the allowable amount, again, to install an in-ground concrete pool.
Yeah. So similar to the last one, right? This is a large pool, I believe probably larger than the other ones. So the pool itself, it's a fairly big increase, not as much as the last one in impervious area. Plus, when you think about the pool, so there's potential there. But I think this one can be mitigated okay. But the comment that was in the application that caught my eye that I found to be a little odd was that there was a statement made that the effective impervious area was going to be down to something lower than what it is currently. The effective impervious area was going to be something around 18%. I've never heard that term used when it comes to increasing impervious area.
Can I just chime in real quick, Dan? So yeah, that happens constantly on the zoning hearing board. Essentially, most applicants that come before the zoning hearing board for a variance have mitigations to lower the effective impervious surface versus the actual. And the zoning hearing board looks at effective versus actual because the effective is truly what it is. So, and Jim, I see that you popped into the screen. So I'm assuming that you're reiterating that same statement.
Yes, James. Basically, they look at it primarily from a stormwater management perspective. And for this application and for a number of other ones, besides doing what's obligated by our stormwater ordinance to handle all the stormwater runoff from an increase in impervious surface, oftentimes applicants said, we're actually going to increase the stormwater retention greater than what would be required by our stormwater ordinance to bring it back to what would have been allowed at the 18%. So effectively, it's as if that impervious surface didn't exist, only from a stormwater management perspective.
Yeah. So James,
essentially, you're putting it in a better situation than it currently is, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
James, that's only if the systems work and are maintained.
Correct.
If effective stormwater management, you do pre versus post calculations, and you would, if I was applying for a stormwater permit from the state, conservation district, et cetera, calling something an effective percentage is not something that would ever fly. That might be
Yeah.
a local term that our zoning hearing board may have used, but that's one that we would not use in any other circumstance.
I believe we used it for the 7 years that I was on that board. My only question is Jim, do you need Andy's expertise in order to determine effective impervious surface or what an adequate drainage system would be for a proposed project?
Now, this is typically something that we handle in-house. When it gets a little more complicated, then we have Mr. Pokel review it, such as the retaining wall one from a few weeks ago. That was doing work in the stream and some other ones like that. But typically, the calculation is fairly straightforward. We even have a spreadsheet that we've made up that is pretty much straightforward. The thing we have to do, as Mr. Grenier pointed out, is double check to see that they haven't not counted any impervious surface that exists on the site. And we do
So
that
essentially,
through-
if you get to a position where you can't adequately determine, you would then rely on Andy's expertise as well.
Correct.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? So we have a motion on the table. Oh, I'm sorry, Fred, go ahead.
Yeah, just, I know that Mr. Majewski is probably, is too modest, but one of his strong points is not only the institutional knowledge of this township, but his great expertise in exactly these type of zoning issues. And his, now 3 years of 4 years of working with Mr. Pockle. I am totally happy with our new community services director's expertise and his cooperation with our other professionals, that Mr. Pockle's participation would not be needed unless Mr. Majewski felt the need.
Thank you, Fred. Anybody else? Suzanne or John, do you guys want to weigh in?
Was there a motion?
There's a motion.
There is a motion, yeah. I'm not hearing anything else.
Okay.
Do we
So
have to
James,
hear-
can we just confirm that Mr. Majewski will be at the meeting? I know sometimes he has other stuff he needs to attend to, so I just want to make sure.
I will be at the meeting, and if I'm unable to attend, then I would have Mr. Pokel replace me. And actually, at the last meeting, I was sick, and Andy filled in for me admirably and went through all the stuff, and it worked out great.
Okay, I'm
Dan, do you
fine
want me
with
to call
that.
a question, or do you want me to? Do you want to withdraw the
If I could
motion?
clarify, are we talking about, was the motion to participate in all three or just one?
I said it for all three, but
That's what I
think,
thought,
James,
okay.
Yeah. I think, James, you had asked me to just say all three if I want to do all
Sure,
three at
yeah.
once.
If that's, yeah. Now, do you want to withdraw the motion, or do you want to take it to a vote?
I would like to take it just to have our engineer participate. That way, if Mr. Majewski can't attend, I'll use engineer in air quotes. I apologize for doing that. And that can be, in my opinion, would be Mr. Majewski or Andy, whoever's available and well enough to attend.
Okay, call to question. All those in favor to ask, because now it's a little confusing. So what you were asking, your original motion is to ask Andy to attend. So
I
that's
just
what
said
we're voting on.
our engineer. So I can withdraw and make a new one if it makes it cleaner.
Yeah, I'm thinking because now it might be. So you're comfortable if either Andy or Jim attends.
I
Jim
am.
is typically at the meetings. If he's not going to be there, he's assured us that Andy will be there in his presence. Fred, did you want to add something?
I appreciate what Supervisor Grenier is saying. It's a matter of a due course and best practice for this township and the zoning hearing board to have either it's already a practice, Mr. Majewski or Mr. Pockle. We represent the township in the engineering needs, depending on the circumstance. So
Okay.
we're already doing what Dan is asking.
So I'm comfortable in telling Supervisor Grenier that either Jim Majewski or Andy Pockle will be at the next zoning hearing board in order to adequately represent his concerns. Are you good with that? Do you want me to with-
I am. I
do
am
you want to
absolutely
withdraw the
good with that.
motion then?
I don't care.
I mean, it's up to you. It's your motion, so I can't.
Why don't we?
withdraw it for you.
Why don't we just take a quick vote just to
Okay.
get it done? It'll
Okay.
Probably take less time.
All those in favor of Supervisor Grenier motion to have Andy participate as part of the 3 zoning hearings coming up, raise their hand and say aye.
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 All those opposed? Nay.
Nay.
So the motion is declined 3-2. But Jim will be there. And if he's not, Andy will. So we're covered.
Yes. Yeah. No. So it's
We're covered.
okay. It's okay.
Okay. So moving along.
That concludes my report.
Okay, that concludes this report. Moving along, zoning inspections and planning, 14A.
The
That would
board
be
has in front of them the payment request number 1 for the Route 332 Mirror Lake Creamery Road Signal Interconnection Project. This was an Arley grant that the township had obtained several years ago. We have reviewed the work that's been completed and recommend that payment in the amount of $24,952.50 be made to Armour and Sons Electric.
So
And
moved.
just to give you an update on the project, they now have installed the controllers that were on back order. And now we're just waiting on a final inspection from PennDOT, and then we could close out the project as soon as that is completed.
So
So I
moved.
did hear that Supervisor Blondie made the motion, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion or questions? Any public
Is it-
comment? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, is it fully active yet?
I believe so. And
Okay.
now they just have to do the final inspection with PennDOT to make sure that PennDOT's okay with it, and our traffic engineer too.
Excellent. Thanks.
Any other questions? Any public comment? No public comment? Called a question. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
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 All opposed? None. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item number 15, general public comment. Is there anybody on the phone?
We have Lisa.
Hi, Lisa,
Hello?
can you hear me? Oh, Lisa, can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yeah, I can.
Welcome to
Oh.
the show. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course. Lisa Tenney, 156 Pinnacle Circle. Okay. Hold on, I got to do something.
Sure.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good. So I called in because so back in November of 2020, is this public comment already?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. I noticed deer crossings across Big Oak Road and noticed that many cars and a lot of people were speeding along this road. I also submitted some speeding problems to the police on Stony Hill. Whatever. So it didn't really alleviate any problems. I did contact every official about the subject because I really did want the deer crossing sign. And unfortunately, I have to report that there was a very bad accident on Big Oak and Stony Hill. I don't know the outcome, but it was across the street from where I reported the fawn being killed. And that was way after I even started my investigation. I did report it to Perry Warren, and he thought it was a good idea to have the sign. Not that this would have prevented anything, but I want to address that maybe if a resident comes to the Board of Supervisors or the township manager, that they kind of take things more seriously. We're invested in the community and a part of the community, and we every day, see the traffic, hear the traffic. So I just encourage you to be more proactive in your approach to governing. Safety to those who already live here and future developments, you need to take into consideration the people that are already here, living here, and the traffic impacts that you may have on them, regardless if it's a state road or a local road. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts on that, Lisa. I think I can speak for the rest of the board that rest assured the professionals that are in place, including the chief of police, our township manager, and everybody else on staff is very vested in this township. They worry about this township, and it's very close and dear to their hearts. So rest assured that all the professionals are doing what they need to do to make sure that we have the safest roads available.
Well, thank you for that,
Thank
Mr.
you
Chairman.
very
I
much.
appreciate that.
Welcome.
Just a quick response. The township manager some time ago forwarded me an email from Senator Warren's, our Representative Warren's office, about the Dare Crossing sign. Our traffic safety officer did look into that. It may not go exactly where you think it should go, but it's going to be right in that area where it's most appropriate. And the accident that you mentioned was not related to a deer. I just want you to know that. And hopefully everybody will be okay in that accident that happened today.
Excellent.
But it is being followed up, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks again, Lisa. Have a great night.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Any other public comments? No other public comments? Anybody in the audience? There's nobody in the back. I thought I saw a hand in the back. Okay. Moving on. Number 16, discussion items. Hearing none. Moving on to supervisor reports. I'll start. We have a very exciting program going on with our Parks and Recs board. Monica Tierney had a guest come in and give a presentation. She is a well-versed national Parks and Recs individual who actually has been reaching out to, or will be reaching out to, all the supervisors. I know that I've made my appointment to speak with her, and she really wants to get some feedback as far as needs assessment. So I encouraged my fellow supervisors to schedule their meeting as soon as possible and get this project going. That's the only thing that I have to say about my supervisor report. So Supervisor Weiss, do you have anything to add?
Yes, the ad hoc property committee met recently, and they are moving along very well. They expect to present to the board, with the chair's consent, March the 2nd, to give us an update on how they're going.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to that. Supervisor Grenier? Oh, I think you're on mute, Dan.
Wow, sorry about that.
It's okay.
I'm on these things all day. I think I get it right. The ERC, the Electrical Liability Committee, is meeting at the end of this month on the 31st. The feedback we got tonight from our sewer engineer probably be discussed. See how that relates to other things. Historic Commission met on the 12th. They'll be meeting next month. They're looking at lots of different projects. They did elect a new chair, Joe Camerata, who, Kurt, I think you've spoken with him before, where he's trying to provide some more details on potential grants to the township to support they have planning versus construction grants. So he's helping us to do that. So thanks to the Historic Commission on that stuff. Other than that, the HARB did not meet. The Planning Commission met. They reorganized. Ross Brutch is their new chair. I'd be hard pressed to remember everyone's role this year, but the one item they covered was the Act 137 plan, or 537 plan. Sorry, they chose to take no action, as I think we've heard on the Act 537 plan updates. Other than that, that is about it.
Thank you,
Back
Dan.
to you, Chair.
Supervisor Blondie?
Yeah, on January 8th, the EAC held their tri-annual, I don't know if that's right, styrofoam, corks, and other recyclable event, and it was a smashing success. So much so that we had overflow styrofoam in the township building for a number of days as numerous trucks have to come and pick it up. So the good news is that it was very successful. The bad news is it's very successful. We are able to recycle that styrofoam thanks to the good work of our neighbors, the Bortmans, who own Exact Solar. And they volunteer their staff and their truck time to take the styrofoam to the various vendors who will use it. It may be that we're just getting too successful, that we need to think of other ways to make that happen. That it may be, I don't want anyone to think we're going to end it, because we're not, but we need to think more creatively about how to staff it so that we can keep it going. The EAC members are incredibly committed, so much so that I know they're all actually driving around with bits of materials that have yet to find a recycled home, and I think that's fabulous. But if we really want this to become, something that we do as a township, we may need, and I know they have on their agenda ways to think about it more creatively. I would want to end with, as we were closing up for the day, members of other EACs from other Bucks County townships were coming to bring their recycles. Is that good or is that bad? Not sure, but it's definitely a well appreciated event, and it's fun to see all the neighbors, especially those who hoard the styrofoam in their garage for the weeks between events so that they can make sure that it stays out of a landfill. So thank you for everyone.
Thank you, Suzanne. Supervisor Lewis?
Yes, the Citizens Traffic Commission met on Monday. Actually, I couldn't join for a family circumstance. However, they're down a few people and had a problem meeting quorum. So again, as I've said in the past, if you are interested in traffic-related issues, they do need folks. And as soon as we can get them, that would be ideal. Tomorrow, Thursday, January the 20th, the Trenton Mercer Airport Review Panel meeting will meet inside the Township Building tomorrow. Just an update between meetings. On behalf of the Airport Review Board, I filed an open records request with the New Jersey DEP related to PFOS and PFOS and PFAS, which are some very nasty chemicals that you certainly don't want in your drinking supply, and got a response from the New Jersey DEP that they did not have any records related to the presence of PFAS on the Trenton Mercer Airport, even though publicly it's been disclosed that they are there and the exact parcel numbers. So that's certainly a concern for folks as we look at the environmental impact assessment of that particular project. And that'll be Thursday, the 20th. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Supervisor Lewis. Moving on to agenda item number 18, other business. Hearing none, moving on to agenda item number 19, appointments to boards and commissions. I believe, Ms. Blondie, you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'm going to make two. First, I move that we consider the appointment of Christopher Greeley and Victor Fiore to the Historic Commission.
I'll second.
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Any discussion? Any public comment?
Oh, James.
Sure.
So I'm looking on our website, and it says that we have 3 vacancies. The spreadsheet that I currently have access to doesn't show how many vacancies we have on the Historic Commission. And I know that we have another resume that we got a week and a half ago of someone that the Historic Commission members are strongly supporting as a member that we weren't able to interview this evening. So if we have 3 openings, I would fully support the motion. If we only have 2, I'm the liaison. I would prefer that we table these particular appointments until the next meeting, until we're able to, if we're able to schedule this other person, to make sure that we can consider all 3 per the request of the commission.
Dan, I believe that the next meeting, February 2nd, already has 3 other interviews. So unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to get to that person until the second meeting in February, which I think puts us kind of behind. I would encourage that person to still interview at that meeting if they were still interested. I think getting more than past 3 interviews during executive session is pretty.
No, I
pretty
agree with you
challenging.
in the volume. I just want, if we don't have the opening, this is someone that the commission strongly endorses as a member. So I want to be able to confirm that we have space for that person as well.
Let me actually see, because I have the spreadsheet in front of me.
Oh, perfect.
It is,
You know?
it's a 7-member commission.
And how many
So,
people do we have right now?
Off the top of my head.
Dan, were you at the last meeting? Do you know how many people
I
were
was,
there? 4?
if it's a 7-member commission, then the website should be okay. Then I think we're okay. I think we had 3
Okay.
vacancies. So I will support this motion. I just want to make sure that the commission knows what we're doing so they don't give me a hard time the next meeting.
So the motion was made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Weiss. Discussion period is done. There is no public comment. All those in favor say aye, raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? None. Welcome to the Historical Committee.
Then I have another motion to consider the appointment of George Hines to Farmland Preservation.
Second?
Motion made by Supervisor Blondie, seconded by Supervisor Grenier. Any questions or comments? Discussion?
Certainly eminently qualified as he went to the University of Pennsylvania.
That didn't.
I
come
didn't
from
say
Dan.
it.
I was going to say that didn't come from Dan.
Wow.
I'm of course kidding.
$20 he's getting. All right. Call to question. All those in favor, raise their hand and say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Welcome to the Farmland Preservation, Mr. Hines. So with that being said, we're up to item number 20. Let me ask you something. Didn't you used to have to get a motion
You know,
in the meeting?
it's customary that a motion is made.
When did that?
I don't know. I mean, I would, is there an absolute right or wrong way to do it? I think most places they do it by motion and second and an affirmation of the entire board, or at least a majority.
Going back to old school, I'll
I'll make
entertain a motion.
to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, do I hear a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. Strongly second. That
Motion made by Lewis, seconded by Mr. Grenier. All those in favor say aye, raise their hand. Aye.
Aye.
Motion,
Well under 4 hours,
Meeting is
James.
over. Have a great night, everybody.
Good night.